The council chamber on Thalrath Prime always smelled like cold metal and smug superiority. Commander Nathan Briggs stood in the center of it, hands clasped behind his back, jaw tight. The thin black lines of his dress uniform looked out of place here, too stark, too human, among the flowing robes and chittering finery of the galactic elite. Above him, on the curved dais, the Council of 12 stared down with their layered eyes, multi-jointed limbs folded in what passed for polite disdain. Briggs didn't miss the glances, the flicker of amusement in the tentacle-crested Valuri speaker, the bored tapping of crystalline claws from the Jareth ambassador, and the hiss-click whispers, untranslatable but heavy with scorn, from the Slath Hive delegates. Behind Briggs, 2 aides stood stiff and silent. Young. Too young. One of them had vomited in the transport shuttle after seeing the Council's security drones. An understandable reaction. The Council's power was absolute, its ruthlessness legendary, and right now, humanity was on the floor, on trial. Not in words, not formally, but this summons, this diplomatic review, was a clear message. Know your place. High Speaker Vectal, a towering reptilian figure with silver-tipped horns, leaned forward. His voice slithered through the chamber's translation field. Commander Briggs, humanity's continued. Violations of Council space are well documented. Your warships linger near restricted systems. Your colonies expand beyond agreed borders. Your traders. A sharp smile, rows of polished fangs. Traffic in controlled technologies. This council finds such behavior problematic. Briggs kept his expression locked. He had heard this speech before. The council's usual tactic: deliver veiled threats, pretend at fairness, then extract humiliating concessions. But not today. Not after what happened at New Damascus. Vectal continued, voice oily. We understand humans possess certain instincts, aggression, competition. But you are a young species. You lack perspective. It is time to relearn humility. The Valuri speaker chimed in, tone dripping mock sorrow. Perhaps a temporary embargo, or the withdrawal of certain privileges, for your own good. Across the chamber, soft hisses of approval. The council sharks scented blood. Briggs inhaled slowly. His fingers flexed once behind his back. No outward change in posture. But inside, something snapped. He had read the full report this morning. The council-backed pirate raid on New Damascus colony. 2,000 civilians dead. Children. Entire settlements burned for the sake of economic correction. And the council thought humanity would roll over. Again, not this time. Briggs stepped forward. A single pace, measured, precise. His voice cut clean through the stagnant chamber air. No. A ripple of surprise. Even the translators paused. Vectal's slitted eyes narrowed. No, Commander Briggs, you do not dictate terms here. Humanity. Briggs cut him off. Number you, listen now. Gasps, actual gasps, from the chamber. The human aides froze, faces pale. Briggs didn't care. You call us young, primitive, aggressive. His voice remained steady, each word a blade. But we showed patience. We signed your treaties, followed your trade codes, paid your protection fees. A harsh breath. And what did that buy us? Broken colonies, murdered civilians, lies. The Valuri speaker twitched, tendrils coiling. Mind your tone, Commander. You speak before the 12. Briggs met its gaze, unblinking. Your 12 can burn. Silence, a thick, electric silence. Somewhere high above, the automated recorders clicked into high-resolution mode. Humanity's polite mask had just shattered, in real time. Briggs took another step forward, voice rising. We are done begging, done apologizing for who we are. He pulled a small data chip from his sleeve, held it up between two fingers. This contains fleet movements. As of 3 hours ago, the 3rd and 5th Terran battle groups are en route to the Epsilon border. Live ammunition, full combat readiness. Hisses, sharp chittering. The council chamber erupted into layered, alien voices. Vectal's claws slammed down. You would threaten this council? You invite annihilation, human. Briggs's smile was cold, honest. You mistake us? His voice was steel. This isn't a threat. Pause. Let it land. It's a response. The council chamber devolved into chaos. Voices layered over each other in a storm of alien languages. Some guttural, some metallic, some no more than pulses of light and pheromone bursts. The Grand Chamber's acoustic dampeners struggled to contain the uproar. Commander Nathan Briggs stood alone beneath the dais, unflinching. He didn't look at his aides. Didn't need to. Their fear was palpable behind him. Let them learn. Let them see what it meant when humanity finally stood up. Above, Vectal hissed something harsh in his native tongue before slamming a clawed fist onto the command rune. The ambient lights shifted to red. Emergency protocol. A dozen towering warforms, mechanized sentinels in gleaming obsidian, unfolded from alcoves around the room, heavy plasma repeaters whirring to life. An unsubtle message. You're still prey here, human. Briggs barely twitched. His voice cut through the bedlam like a gunshot. Stand those toys down, or someone will mistake this for an act of war. The threat wasn't bluster. Behind his cool tone was hard reality. His battle groups were already moving. The fleet admirals knew. His orders were unambiguous. If Briggs didn't walk out of this chamber alive, the void around Thalrath Prime would soon bloom with fire. Vectal's gaze locked onto him. Intelligent. Cunning. The reptilian warlord might have loathed humanity, but he understood leverage. He barked a command in council cant. Slowly, reluctantly, the sentinels powered down, still poised, but no longer tracking him actively. Silence, then. Thick. Tense. The other council members stared at Briggs with a mix of shock and cold calculation. No species had ever spoken back like this. Certainly not humans. The New Bloods, barely a century into galactic society. The Valuri speaker slithered forward, voice syrup-sweet but trembling at the edges. Commander Briggs, surely you realize the implications of your words. Briggs gave a short nod. I do. Another voice joined in, a shrill, resonant tone from the crystalline Jareth diplomat. Human fleets cannot stand against the might of the Council Armada. Your species will be erased. Briggs let that hang in the air for a beat. Then, quietly, funny thing about humans. He took another step forward, daring. You think we're civilized, tamed by treaties, bound by protocol. His smile was grim. That's true, until it isn't. He reached inside his uniform and pulled out a small hollow projector, activating it with a flick of his thumb. A 3D tactical display shimmered into existence above the floor, a map of local sectors. Red markers swarmed along the borders of council space, human ships, dozens of them, and not just defensive frigates, capital ships, carriers, dreadnoughts. Briggs spoke low and hard. New Damascus was the last straw. We know the Council sanctioned that raid. You can deny it here, but we have the data. His gaze swept the chamber. You murdered civilians, our children. No response. Just the cold gaze of the 12. So here it is, simple. We will no longer be prey. You want a war? He gestured to the hollow map. You're going to get one. The youngest of the 12, a sleek-furred Filari ambassador, hissed sharply. You speak of war as though humanity could endure it. The Council has crushed greater species than yours. Briggs tilted his head. Name one. A flicker of hesitation. He pressed. Name one that fought us. Silence again. The chamber vibrated faintly with the tension. Because here was the truth they all feared, though none would speak it aloud. Humanity was different. Not because of superior technology, far from it. The Council's tech was centuries ahead in many respects. Not because of numbers. Humanity was still the junior species in this part of the galaxy, but because of what lived inside humans. A capacity for total, unrelenting violence when cornered. An ability to endure losses no other species would accept. To fight dirty, to sacrifice, to win ugly. They'd seen hints of it in the past decade. The Rim skirmishes, the pirate suppression campaigns, the Battle of Eridani, where a human task force, outnumbered 4-1, had burned an entire sliver fleet to cinders and kept firing on escape pods. Briggs's voice dropped to a growl. You look down on us because we talk nice, wear uniforms, shake hands at summits. He jabbed a finger towards the council dais. But polite mode only lasts as long as you play fair. A pause. Then the final blow. And today, councilors, you shut it off. That landed like a thunderclap. Even the war forms seemed to hum lower, as though reacting to the shift. Vectal leaned in now, eyes gleaming. You understand the stakes, human? His voice was pure venom. Billions will die. Briggs met his gaze unflinchingly. Then we'll bury them with honor. He flicked the holomap again. New markers appeared, hidden supply depots, rapid response strike wings, Black Ops units already seated deep in Council space. You may crush Earth, you may kill me here, but we will burn your shipyards, poison your hyperlanes, sabotage your throne worlds. His voice was ice. We will make this war so costly your great-great hatchlings will still be paying the price. The Valuri coiled tighter, whispering something to its aid. The chamber had shifted, from smug superiority to calculating fear. Because now they believed him. Briggs wasn't bluffing, and they knew enough of human history to understand what came next. Total war. Vectal's claws drummed on the dais. Finally, he spoke in a slow, deliberate tone. You have forced this council's hand. Briggs nodded once. Number U forced ours. A beat of silence. Then Vectal gestured sharply. This session is adjourned. The council will confer. The chamber lights shifted again, signaling the end of proceedings. Without waiting for leave, Briggs deactivated the holomap, turned on his heel, and strode back toward the chamber doors. His aides scrambled to follow, pale but wide-eyed with adrenaline. As they exited the vast hall, one of them, Lieutenant Keller, whispered hoarsely, Sir, did we just declare war? Briggs didn't break stride. We told them what happens next. And if they call our bluff? Briggs's smile was grim. There is no bluff. The walk back to the human embassy was brisk and silent. As they entered the secured comms room, Briggs activated the priority line. It crackled once before stabilizing, the Terran Defense Command sigil pulsing on the screen. A grizzled face appeared. Admiral Grayson, eyes sharp as flint. Status, Commander? Briggs's tone was steel. They know. Grayson's smile was thin. Good. Orders? Briggs inhaled once. Proceed to Phase 2. Full fleet readiness. Prepare first strike contingencies. A pause. And inform the Marines. No quarter. Grayson nodded. Understood. We'll be ready. The channel closed. Briggs turned to the room, voice cutting. No more waiting. No more games. He looked at his aides, their faces hardening. From here on out, we show them who we really are. The stars above Thalrath Prime gleamed cold and indifferent, uncaring of the storm about to erupt beneath their eternal gaze. Commander Briggs stood alone on the observation deck of the human embassy's secure wing. His jaw was tight, shoulders square, hands clasped behind his back. Below, the cityscape of the alien capital glittered, a mockery of civilization. He could still hear the council chamber's voices in his mind. Sneers, thinly veiled threats, condescension. That smug certainty that humanity would fold. Again. Not this time. Behind him, the embassy's heavy security doors hissed open. Lieutenant Keller entered, pale but determined, data slate in hand. "Sir, priority update from Defense Command." Briggs turned, took the slate. His eyes flicked over the lines of encrypted text. His heart thudded once, heavy. 5th Terran Battle Group had reached the Epsilon Gate. 3rd Battle Group, 32 warships, was now within 2 hyperjumps of Council space. Additional deployments were mobilizing. The Marines were on alert. Phase 2 was active. The machine was in motion. He looked at Keller, voice low. "Any word from the Council?" "None yet, sir, but intelligence picked up chatter." "Go on." Keller swallowed. "The Council Security Bureau is moving military assets. Orbital defense grids are activating. Several Council member fleets have been ordered to high alert." Briggs allowed himself a thin, humorless smile. "They're scared." Keller hesitated. "Sir, if they move first..." "They won't." Briggs' voice was steel. "Not yet. They're used to bullying. They expect us to blink." He tossed the data slate onto the console. "But this time, there's nothing left to blink for." Keller nodded, her eyes sharp with new understanding. She had watched her commander walk into the council chamber alone and defy the galaxy's most powerful body, and emerge still standing. Now she saw it. There was no turning back. Across the void, aboard the flagship TNS Iron Resolve, Admiral Grayson paced his war room. Dozens of officers surrounded the central holotable, its surface alive with shifting tactical displays, fleet positions, supply lines, target priorities, the beginnings of what could become a war that would reshape the stars. Grayson's voice was a low growl. "Status report." Comms Officer Durant responded crisply. 3rd Battle Group at T-2 jumps. 5th holding position at Epsilon. Scout wings report Council fleet mobilizations. Mixed force composition. No open hostilities yet. Grayson's fist closed over the table's edge. "They're hesitating." "Yes, sir." "Good." Grayson's eyes were hard. "We'll force them to show their teeth first. Once they do..." He left the sentence hanging. Everyone in the room knew what would follow. No quarter. Humanity had been the Council's dog long enough. Now, at last, the leash was off. Back on Thalrath Prime, Briggs moved through the embassy like a coiled spring. Every corridor hummed with tension. Security teams checked weapons. Intel analysts monitored Council communications. The embassy's reinforced shield generators were on standby. Briggs entered the Strategic Command Room, where his senior staff awaited him. Colonel Harris, Director Shaw from Intelligence, and Lieutenant Keller. He spoke without preamble. "Update." Shaw stepped forward, her voice clipped. "Intercepted a Council-level transmission, sir. Private channel between Vectal and several high commanders." Briggs's eyes narrowed. "Content?" Shaw hesitated. "They're debating options. Some factions are pushing for an immediate show of force, possibly a blockade of Terran trade routes. Others are more cautious." Briggs absorbed that in silence. The cracks were showing already. The Council was not a monolith. Its members were held together by greed and mutual distrust as much as by power. Humanity's open defiance had introduced uncertainty, fear, and nothing spread faster among the elite. Colonel Harris spoke next. "Our embassy staff is ready for evac if needed. Marines on site can hold for 20 minutes if they breach perimeter." Briggs nodded. "Good, but we're not running yet." He turned back to Shaw. I want full eyes on their fleet movements. If they start massing ships near Earth or the colonies, I want to know first." "Yes, sir." Then Briggs looked at them all, voice dropping to a hard edge. "We didn't start this, but if they push—" He tapped the table sharply. "We finish it." 2 hours later the summons came. A council envoy. Diplomatic, not military. That was telling. Briggs stood before the secure conference room's massive display screen as the transmission engaged. The flickering image resolved into the thin, sallow face of High Envoy Tyrell, a minor council functionary known for his oily charm. Tyrell's tone was false smooth. "Commander Briggs, the Council, acknowledges recent tensions. We regret that misunderstandings have led to this point." Briggs said nothing. "Let the envoy sweat." Tyrell continued. "In the spirit of continued cooperation, the Council invites a renewed dialogue, a summit, to de-escalate. A beat. Naturally, your fleets would stand down during such talks, as a gesture of goodwill." Now Briggs spoke, voice flat. "No." Tyrell blinked. "I beg your pardon?" Briggs leaned slightly forward. "No stand down, no goodwill gestures. If the Council wants talks, you get them under parity, no conditions." The envoy's mask cracked slightly. "Commander, surely you realize this posturing only increases the risk of war." Briggs's eyes were cold. "That risk already exists. You made sure of that when you killed civilians at New Damascus. Those were regrettable rogue actions, not authorized by this body." Briggs snorted softly. "We both know better." He folded his arms. "You want peace? You start with 3 things: formal acknowledgement of the raid, reparations to the victims' families, and criminal trials for those responsible." Tyrell sputtered. "Those demands are non-negotiable?" The envoy's expression curdled. "If humanity persists on this course, consequences will follow." Briggs allowed a razor-thin smile. "They already are." He cut the transmission. Later that night, alone in his quarters, Briggs reviewed the latest intel. Council fleets were moving. Not fully committed yet, but preparing. Earth's defenses were ramping up. War would not be days away, hours, maybe less. He stood before the viewport, staring at the alien stars. "They think we're afraid. They think we'll fold." His hands clenched. They didn't understand. Couldn't understand. When humanity's polite mask shut off, what remained was something ancient, something the Council, for all its centuries of rule, had never truly faced. Not yet. His personal comm beeped. Secure priority message. Admiral Grayson's voice came through, hard as steel. "Commander, Scout Wing reports Council strike force mobilizing near Thalrath orbit. 70+ ships. They're testing us." Briggs' reply was calm. "Then let's give them an answer." The first shots came at 0431 Galactic Standard. Commander Briggs was already awake. He hadn't slept. No one in the embassy had. The air buzzed with raw tension, the kind that crawled into a man's bones and refused to leave. He stood in the operations room when the alert klaxons screamed. "Council fleet moving on Vector 279, Lieutenant Keller reported sharply, eyes locked on the holographic display. 73 vessels, closing fast." Colonel Harris's voice was grim. "They're positioning for a blockade." Briggs didn't hesitate. "Activate embassy shields. Full power." The command staff jumped into motion. Energy levels surged. The reinforced diplomatic compound thrummed as defensive grids lit up, not military grade, but hardened enough to delay an attack. Briggs turned to Keller. "Signal iron resolve. Tell Admiral Grayson. Hostilities initiated. Authorization code black." Keller's fingers flew across the console. "Yes, sir." High above Thalrath Prime, The void glittered with new stars, council warships, sliding into orbit, frigates, destroyers, 3 heavy cruisers, all gleaming with the council's sigils of power. They didn't broadcast declarations. They didn't hail the human embassy. They simply moved in. On board the flagship Iron Resolve, Admiral Grayson watched the fleet maneuver with a predator's gaze. "Comms?" Durant replied, voice taut. "No direct transmission, sir. Council fleet is assuming aggressive posture." Grayson's jaw worked. "So be it." He tapped the comm. "All hands to battle stations. Deploy forward wings. Hold formation. Do not fire, unless fired upon." A beat. "And get me Commander Briggs." Back at the embassy, Keller's console pinged. "Sir, Iron Resolve on secure channel." "Patch through." Grayson's face appeared on the holoscreen, hard-eyed, jaw like carved stone. "Commander, they're testing us. What's your read?" Briggs answered flatly. "They're probing for weakness, trying to force us to blink." Grayson's lip curled. "They're going to be disappointed." Briggs nodded once. "They move on us, we respond. No half measures." A beat. "Understood. Iron Resolve will be ready. Orders?" Briggs' voice was steel. "Phase 3. Grayson's eyes gleamed. "It will be done." The channel cut. Minutes later, the council fleet edged closer. Brazen now. They had miscalculated. They still believed this was diplomacy with threats, not a war in motion. Inside the embassy, alarms spiked. "Council destroyers locking weapons," Keller shouted. Briggs's heart hammered once. "Status on shields?" "Full charge." Holding Colonel Harris looked up from the tactical feed. "They're preparing to target comms and shield generators. Classic disabling strike." Briggs drew a breath. "Time to show them we're not prey." He keyed the command circuit. "Broadcast to all council channels. Any hostile action against Terran personnel will be met with immediate lethal force. No further warnings." A pause. "And notify Fleet Command. Engagement authorization granted." Above the planet, the Council Task Force ignored the warning. A single pulse laser lanced out, bright as a newborn sun. It struck the embassy's outer shield, flaring harmlessly but deliberately. The first shot. On Iron Resolve, alarms blared. Durant's voice rang across the bridge. "Hostile fire detected. Target, human embassy shield grid." Grayson's reply was instant. "Return fire. Target lead council frigate. Full salvo. The stars ignited. Massive railguns thudded. High-velocity slugs streaked through the void. Plasma torpedoes followed, carving glowing trails. In the span of seconds, a council frigate, CNS Valrus, took 3 direct hits, its shields shattering. The hull ruptured in a blossom of white-hot debris. The war had begun. Inside the embassy, the impact reports came in rapid fire. "Iron Resolve has engaged," Keller shouted. "Council vessel destroyed." Briggs nodded grimly. "Good." He keyed the secure line. "Fleet Command, this is Commander Briggs. Council forces have opened hostilities. Terran forces engaged. Situation escalating." A pause. "Execute full wartime protocol. Earth and colonies to defense posture Omega." The galaxy changed in those moments. Across Terran space, coded alerts triggered. Naval yards went dark, shifting to lockdown. Reserve fleets powered up. Marine divisions activated planetary defense grids. Civilian convoys rerouted. Special operations teams deep in Council territories received their final go codes. The polite mask of galactic diplomacy was gone. In its place, the cold, calculating machinery of total war. On Thalrath Prime, Council leadership reeled. Vectal slammed his claws onto the war table. "They dared return fire," an aide stammered. "The human flagship destroyed the Valrus in the first salvo, Speaker. Our forces are responding, but they are well coordinated." Vectal's eyes narrowed to burning slits. "Mobilize full planetary defense. Bring in the orbital fleet. I want the Terran embassy reduced to slag." Briggs knew it was coming. In the command room, Keller reported breathlessly. "Planetary defense grid powering up. Estimated strike in 2 minutes." Briggs's mind was ice. "Evacuate non-combat staff to sub-shelters. All others, combat readiness." He keyed the fleet channel. "Grayson, they're about to hit us hard." Grayson's voice came back like a hammer. "We'll cover you. Reinforcements inbound. Resolute Dawn and Thunderchild arriving within the hour." Briggs allowed himself a thin smile. "Understood. Let's remind them who they're dealing with." The first orbital strikes came screaming down. Lances of plasma hammered the embassy shields, lighting the night sky in hellish blue. The compound shook, dust raining from ceilings, consoles flickering. Keller steadied herself at her station. "Shields at 74%, Colonel Harris bellowed over the noise. "Marines holding all defensive positions." Briggs moved through the chaos, voice cutting. "Stay sharp. They want to break us. Hold the line." High above, Iron Resolve and its escorts wove through the Council fleet with surgical precision. Human tactics were brutal and unorthodox. Instead of the ponderous formations the Council expected, Terran ships fought in fast-moving wolf packs. Strike wings hit vulnerable targets with coordinated bursts, then vanished into sensor shadow. Council ships burned. Another frigate died under mass driver fire. A cruiser lost its engines, spiraling helplessly. But the Council responded. Reinforcements began pouring from deeper orbit. Durant reported urgently. "Multiple enemy squadrons inbound, Admiral. We're outnumbered 5-1. Grayson's gaze didn't waver. "We've been outnumbered since this damned Council was founded." He keyed fleet-wide comms. "All ships, keep hitting them where it hurts. Prioritize command vessels. Make them bleed." Back on the surface, the embassy shields faltered under relentless assault. Keller's voice was sharp. "Shields down to 40%. Briggs looked to Harris. "How long can we hold?" "Not long, sir." Briggs drew a breath. "Then we make them pay for every meter." He keyed comms. "To all Terran personnel, this is Commander Briggs. The Council thinks it can break us." His voice was iron. "They've forgotten one thing." A pause. "Humans don't break. We fight." The air inside the embassy thrummed with the steady pulse of dying shields. Commander Briggs could feel it under his boots, that subtle vibration through the floor, growing sharper as each orbital strike bled more power from their defenses. Above them, the sky was no longer blue. It was a roiling storm of plasma and burning debris, streaked with the wreckage of both Council and human ships. The first hour of battle had turned Thalrath Prime's upper atmosphere into a death zone. Hundreds of vessels were locked in a swirling brawl above the capital, and already dozens were gone. But the Council had underestimated one simple truth. Humans fought dirty, and they fought to win. Briggs moved swiftly through the embassy's interior, now lit by flickering red emergency strips. He entered the fortified command post where Colonel Harris and Lieutenant Keller stood over the tactical display. Keller's voice was tense. "Shields at 21%. Incoming waves intensifying." Harris grunted. "They're committing heavier assets now, trying to finish us before reinforcements arrive." Briggs's gaze sharpened. "Fleet status?" Keller keyed the display. A holomap flickered to life. Iron Resolve and primary escort wings still holding the inner defense perimeter. Resolute Dawn and Thunderchild have arrived, flanking enemy forces. She glanced up, voice grim. "But Council reinforcements are inbound. Big ones. Several battlecruisers jumping in system." Briggs absorbed the data in silence. They weren't going to hold this ground by endurance alone. The Council's sheer numbers would tell, unless something changed. In orbit, Admiral Grayson was already moving to do just that. "Time to cut the bastard's throat," he growled. Durant blinked. "Sir?" Grayson's eyes gleamed cold. "They're overcommitting to the blockade line, exposing their rear logistics." He stabbed a finger toward the holotable. "Task Force Epsilon, flank through Vector 380. Hit their carriers and supply ships. Hard." Understood. Moments later, 4 Terran assault groups broke formation and surged around the battle's edge. Fast, low-profile warships designed for deep strike missions. Council Command had grown used to grand, ponderous fleet battles, all about overwhelming force and formation discipline. Humanity had learned another lesson: kill the enemy's ability to fight first. As the embassy's shields weakened, the first enemy strike pods reached the perimeter. Alarms screamed. Colonel Harris barked, "Enemy breach teams inbound. Prepare for close quarters." Briggs drew his sidearm, an old Terran slug thrower. Reliable. Brutal. Human. He keyed the general communication. "All Terran personnel. Enemy boarding attempt in progress. Hold positions. Kill anything that crosses our lines." The first wave of Council shock troopers hit the compound like a hammer. Genetically engineered brutes in gleaming combat exosuits, armed with plasma rifles and clawed gauntlets. But they met Terran Marines, hard men and women who had trained for war in every hellhole humanity had ever settled. The fighting turned savage. Briggs led from the front. He moved through smoke-filled corridors as the embassy shook with impacts. A sudden flash, breach charge, metal screamed and split. Council troopers poured through. Briggs' first shot took one in the throat, the slug punching clean through reinforced armor. Another dropped as a Marine's shotgun blast tore into it. "Push them back!" Briggs roared. Every meter was paid in blood. The Council troops were fierce, faster than human soldiers, but they fought with programmed tactics. Humans fought with desperation, with rage, with the deep, cold knowledge that there was no retreat, no surrender, only fight or die. In orbit, Grayson's strike teams found their mark. Council rear support vessels erupted into flame as Terran attack wings punched through. Carriers burned. Ammunition ships detonated, sending shockwaves through the battle. Council Command staggered. Their forward push faltered. Briggs's earpiece crackled. Keller's voice, ragged but alive. "Commander, orbital support confirming enemy fleet disruption. Our window is opening." Briggs reloaded, smoke stinging his eyes. "Good. Keep pushing. We hold this ground no matter what." In the embassy's central hall, the fighting reached a crescendo. Council shock teams swarmed forward, but Terran Marines fought like men possessed. Grenades thumped. Gunfire roared in the tight spaces. The floor was slick with alien ichor and human blood. Briggs vaulted a fallen barrier, firing point-blank into a Council soldier's exposed faceplate. Another lunged. Briggs sidestepped, drove his knife up under the armored jaw. He didn't think, didn't feel. There was no room for fear anymore. In space, the tide was turning. Admiral Grayson stood unmoving as fresh battle reports came in. "Enemy fleet cohesion breaking," Durant reported. "Several Council wings retreating." Grayson's voice was flat. "No mercy. Pursue. Drive them from orbit." Terran ships pressed the attack, exploiting every weakness. For every lost human ship, 3 Council vessels burned. On the ground, the embassy's shields finally gave way. A rippling collapse, power systems fried under sustained bombardment. But now, it was too late. Council ground forces were in disarray, thinned by brutal losses inside the compound, and above, their support was crumbling. Briggs stood amid the wreckage of the central hall. Blood streaked across his armor. Smoke hung thick. The bodies of Council troopers lay in heaps, twisted, broken. A Marine sprinted in. "Commander, priority message from Iron Resolve. Council flagship retreating. Orbital superiority achieved." Briggs exhaled once. "They're pulling back." A beat. "Signal all forces. Counteroffensive now. Clear the embassy. Push them out." Across the burning halls, Terran forces surged. What began as a desperate defense became a relentless advance. Room by room, the remaining Council intruders were hunted down. Soy. No prisoners. An hour later, Briggs stood on the shattered embassy roof. The fires of war still burned above, debris raining from the wreckage of Council ships. But the sky was no longer hostile. It was Terran-held. Admiral Grayson's face appeared on the comm display. "Commander, Thalrath orbit secured. Remaining Council forces retreating. Ground forces in full control." Briggs's voice was hoarse but steady. "Understood. Casualty reports?" A grim pause. "Heavy, but we held." Briggs nodded once. "We always do." In the Council chambers that same hour, panic reigned. Vectal's voice was a furious snarl. "They bled us, on our own capital," an aide whispered. "Human forces fight, beyond reason, beyond tolerance." Vectal's eyes burned. "They've declared war, then they shall have it." But beneath the fury was fear. The Council had expected an easy show of force. What they had received instead was the cold wrath of a species that refused to die quietly. On Thalrath Prime, as dawn broke through the smoke-choked sky, Briggs stood amidst the battered survivors. He looked to the scorched heavens. This was only the beginning. Humanity's polite mask had shut off. And now the galaxy would learn what that truly meant. The fires on Thalrath Prime still burned when the next orders came. Commander Briggs stood in what remained of the embassy's command post. Walls blackened, consoles cracked and scorched. The compound had been battered to ruin, but it still flew the Terran flag. Outside, Marines were clearing the last of the Council's shock troopers. Sniper teams swept the surrounding district rooftops. Drone patrols hunted for stragglers. The air reeked of smoke and blood. Victory had been won, but at a steep price, and it was far from over. Briggs leaned over the battered hollow table. The feed flickered, unstable, but the message from Fleet Command was clear. "Prepare for expanded operations. Council forces mobilizing across multiple sectors. Priority target list incoming. High Command authorizes escalation to Phase 4. In plain terms, the war was now galaxy-wide. No more containment, no more pretense. Humanity would strike back everywhere. Lieutenant Keller entered, blood streaked but steady. "Commander, fresh intel from Iron Resolve. Council fleets massing at Archeon Gate and Valis Cluster. Intercepted comms suggest they're preparing a multi-front counteroffensive." Briggs absorbed this grimly. "They're trying to regain initiative." "Yes, sir. Fleet Command recommends immediate preemptive strikes." Briggs nodded. "Good. That's exactly what we'll do." Admiral Grayson's voice came through the secured communication. "Commander, congratulations. You and your people just humiliated the most arrogant bastards in the galaxy." Briggs's voice was rough from smoke and exhaustion. "We're not finished yet." Grayson's smile was cold. "Number. We're just getting started. Orders from High Command. Phase 4 authorized. Strike groups are mobilizing to hit deep targets. Council fleet yards, communications hubs, fuel depots." A beat. "You're to lead the ground side component. Task Force Odin is inbound. Special operations. Black flag clearance." Briggs's brow furrowed. "Black flag?" Grayson nodded grimly. "You know what that means, Commander. No prisoners, no quarter. Council leadership chose this war. Now they'll feel it." Briggs cut the channel and looked to his staff. Colonel Harris was already one step ahead. "Task Force Odin ETA 12 hours. Marines rearming and prepping for extended combat op. Keller's voice was taut. Priority targets for Phase 4, Council shipyards at Valis Prime and relay hubs in the Hadros chain. Briggs's jaw tightened. Relay hubs first. We blind them. Then we burn their ability to build new ships. He looked around the ruined command post. This war won't be won in Council chambers. It'll be won in blood, sector by sector. Across Council space, the shockwaves from Thalrath Prime's defeat rippled outward. News of the Council's failure spread faster than officials could contain it. In the independent Rim territories, factions long cowed by Council rule whispered of human defiance. Pirate fleets reconsidered alliances. Border worlds prepared for open revolt. Mercenary guilds hedged bets. And in the core worlds, Council leadership raged. In the deep chambers beneath the Council spire, Vectal slammed a clawed fist into the Council table. Their insolence grows, our worlds burn, and the lesser races speak of rebellion, the Valuri speaker hissed softly. We underestimated them, their will to fight. Vectal's eyes gleamed with cold fury. Then we shall meet it with annihilation, mobilize the Armada, all of it. A pause. And issue the Black Edict, total war against humanity. No mercy, no surrender, extermination. The chamber fell silent. The line had been crossed. Back on Thalrath Prime, Briggs met with the incoming leaders of Task Force Odin. Colonel Abrams, tall and scarred, led the detachment. His black armor bore no insignia. Commander Briggs, Abrams greeted with a sharp nod. We're here to take the gloves off. Briggs matched the nod. We've already started. Abrams smirked. Good. Our first op, hit the Hadros chain. Knock out their primary comms relays. They won't be able to coordinate fleet movements without them. Briggs' eyes gleamed. And after that? Abrams' voice was ice. Then we start breaking their shipyards. 12 hours later, aboard the stealth assault ship TNS Ghostblade, Briggs stood alongside Task Force Odin as they prepared to deploy. Grayson's face flickered on the hollow briefing. Council fleets will be moving to cover core worlds. That gives us a narrow window to hit them where it hurts. You'll jump into Hadros under stealth, destroy or disable the relay hubs. Once those are down, our fleet groups will sever Council lanes across 5 sectors. A pause. If successful, we'll choke them, force them to scatter. Briggs's voice was cold. Then we'll hunt them. Grayson nodded. Exactly. As Ghostblade slid into the black, Briggs looked over his team. Hardened soldiers, veterans of the Eridani conflict, Black Ops operatives who'd spent years in the shadows of Council space. There was no pretense here, no grand speeches. Everyone knew the stakes. This was kill or be killed. The Hadros chain loomed ahead, 6 linked relay stations controlling hyperlane traffic and fleet coordination across a quarter of Council territory. Destroy them, and Council command would be blinded. Briggs keyed his comm. All units, weapons free on target acquisition. No mercy, no hesitation. We fight as one. A chorus of affirmatives answered. The assault began at 0400 standard. Ghostblade and 2 escort frigates emerged from hyperspace under deep stealth. Council pickets barely had time to raise alarms before the first human boarding torpedoes slammed into Relay Station 1. Briggs led the first breach team. The hatch blew outward, smoke and steel shards filling the air. Then chaos. Council technicians died at their stations, caught mid-alert. Automated defenses activated, but Odin operatives moved like wraiths, clearing corridors with brutal efficiency. Briggs' rifle spoke in sharp, disciplined bursts, each shot lethal. On the main command deck, the Council overseer shrieked for reinforcements. Too late. Briggs' team surged through the defenses, cutting them down. A final grenade ended resistance, shattering the primary control core. Relay 1, down, Keller reported over comms. Briggs didn't pause. Move to next. We're not finished. Across the Hadros chain, the story repeated. Station after station fell to ruthless human precision. Council ships scrambled to respond, but fragmented comms and chaos hampered coordination. By the time the last relay detonated in a fireball of debris, human losses were minimal. Council comms across 5 sectors went dark. Aboard Ghostblade, Briggs watched the tactical display update. Keller's voice held grim satisfaction. Council traffic collapsing. Fleet movements in disarray. Colonel Abrams grinned. Beautiful. Now they bleed. Briggs nodded. Next target, Valis Prime. Shipyards. As Ghostblade powered up for its next jump, Briggs looked out at the stars. The war was no longer about defense. It was about breaking the Council's grip forever. And humanity, its polite mask long since gone, was just getting started. The jump into Valis Prime was rough. Commander Briggs stood braced on the assault deck of Ghostblade as the stealth cruiser tore out of hyperspace, hull groaning with stress. The moment they exited, alarms screamed. Council jamming fields saturated the system. Colonel Abrams' voice came sharp over internal comms. Brace up. Valis is hot. Weapons live the second we're through. Briggs's jaw tightened. He'd expected this. Valis Prime was no soft target. It was the Council's second largest military shipyard, orbiting a fortified gas giant. The yards there built the cruisers and carriers that kept half of Council space in line. Taking them out wouldn't just be a victory. It would be a humiliation. And the Council couldn't afford another one of those. Keller's voice crackled over Briggs's earpiece. Commander, Council fleet strength confirmed. At least 12 capital ships in system. Multiple defense stations. They're ready. Briggs absorbed that grimly. They think being ready will save them. He keyed his team's comm. All units, this is no raid. We're here to cripple them. Shipyards come down no matter what. If you're killed, you die knowing you bled them. If you live, you make them fear us. Understood? A hard chorus of "Understood" answered. Ghostblade screamed forward, flanked by 2 Terran Black Flag frigates. Behind them, the first wave of strike bombers emerged from the stealth envelope. The attack had begun. Council Fleet Command reacted fast, but not fast enough. The Terran strike groups had already closed half the distance to the outer yards. Council interceptors launched in swarms, sleek, insect-like craft armed with plasma repeaters. But Terran bombers were built for brute force killing. They punched through the swarm, deploying kinetic warheads and EMP bursts. Explosions ripped the void. Onboard Ghostblade, Keller reported. Outer defense stations engaging, Council bringing main fleet around to intercept. Briggs' eyes gleamed. Good. Pull them in. Bleed them. Admiral Grayson's fleet, positioned just beyond the hyperlane, was already moving. The Iron Resolve and its battle group surged into the system as soon as the first Council ships committed to intercepting Ghostblade's assault. Grayson's growl echoed through fleet comms. All ships, no formation games, target engines and reactors, cripple them, then burn the yards. In the Valis control spire, Council Overseer Trelos Vaughn bellowed in fury. Impossible! They shouldn't be able to breach this far, a junior officer stammered. Human forces, fight unpredictably, Overseer. We can't predict their attack vectors. Vaughn's claws slammed into the console. Then shoot everything. I want their bones floating in orbit. On the ground, Briggs led the first boarding wave. Ghostblade's launch bays opened, drop pods streaking toward the orbital shipyards. The pods impacted with thunderous force, breach drills chewing through hull plating. Briggs' pod hit hard. The hatch blew. Chaos. Council defenders surged forward, combat droids, exosuited troopers. Briggs led his squad straight into them. His first shots cracked through a droid's optic core. He pivoted, knifed a trooper in the throat, slug thrower barking again. No quarter, No hesitation. Colonel Abrams' voice came over the squad net. "Control deck secured. Pushing to yard command," Briggs replied between bursts. "Keep pressure. Don't let them regroup. We cut the head off this beast." Council resistance was fanatical, but brittle under true stress. They had trained for orderly war, not the raw brutality of Terran assault doctrine. Human squads pushed deep, room by room, cutting power lines, seizing reactor nodes, planting demo charges. Above, the battle for space raged. Iron Resolve hammered a Council battlecruiser, railgun slugs tearing through weakened shields. Grayson's voice cut through bridge comms. "Drive them back. We own this sky." Inside Yard Core Alpha, Briggs's team breached the main command hub. Heavy fire met them. Plasma bolts stitched the walls. Briggs moved with grim purpose, his team laying down suppressive fire, breaching grenades, clearing entry points, smoke, screams, blood. Then silence. Briggs stepped over the body of the Council overseer, slugs still embedded in the alien's chest. He keyed the all-unit channel. "Command hub secure. Begin demolition phase." Minutes later, tactical nukes, small yield, precise, were planted in the shipyard's main reactor cores. Keller's voice rang through. "All charges set, Commander. 5-minute fuse." Briggs looked over his battered team. "You heard her. Evac, now." As the Terran squads withdrew, the first signs of Council collapse filled comm traffic. Intercepted chatter showed ships retreating in disarray. Yard Defense Command shattered. The Terran fleet pursued ruthlessly. Briggs and his team sprinted through shattered corridors, boarding their extraction pods as alarms blared. The pods launched just as the first core detonations began. Briggs watched from orbit as Valis Prime's great shipyards tore apart in a chain of sun-bright explosions. Massive girders and shattered hulls spiraled outward, Council hopes burning with them. On Iron Resolve, Grayson saluted the image grimly. Another blow struck. He keyed the fleet-wide broadcast. "All ships, mission accomplished. Council yards crippled. Prepare withdrawal." Aboard Ghostblade, Briggs sat in the medbay, helmet at his side. Blood streaked his armor, his own and others. Keller approached quietly. "Commander, High Command just confirmed. With Valis Prime down, Council Corps fleets are forced to withdraw to defensive positions. We've got them off balance." Briggs looked at her, voice hoarse. "They'll come back harder." She nodded. "Yes, sir. But for now, they're bleeding." Elsewhere in the galaxy, the news of Valis Prime's destruction spread like wildfire. Border worlds rose in open rebellion. Neutral factions began arming. Council allies began hedging their bets. In the Council's inner sanctum, Vectal raged. "Valis Prime, gone, burned by humans. The fleet is in retreat." The Valuri speaker's tendrils writhed. "We cannot control the outer sectors. The rim is slipping," Vectal snarled. "Then we escalate, deploy the purifiers, glass their colonies, burn their planets." But beneath the fury was fear. The humans weren't breaking. On Ghostblade, Briggs received the next orders. Grayson's voice was dark. "Commander, High Command confirms. Council has authorized total war. Civilian targets already hit on the outer colonies." Briggs' fists clenched. "Then we escalate in turn." He looked to Keller. "Prepare Task Force Odin for deep strike ops." A beat. "We're going to the heart of their empire next." The polite mask of humanity was long gone. Now came the reckoning. The order came through at 0400 Terran Central Time. Commander Briggs stood on the bridge of the newly arrived TNS Vengeance, a heavy assault cruiser retrofitted for deep strike warfare. Admiral Grayson's face filled the holodisplay, grim as ever. "Commander, the time has come." Briggs said nothing, waiting. Grayson continued. High Command authorizes Operation Iron Fist. Final phase? Objective? Council Core Worlds. A pause. We hit their capital. We make it clear. Humanity bows to no one. Briggs's voice was low. Understood. The Council home system, Vireth Ka, was one of the most fortified regions in the galaxy. Massive orbital fortresses, minefields, half the Council armada stationed there. To breach it would be madness. But after Thalrath Prime, after Hadros, after Valis Prime, madness had become humanity's advantage. They fought where no one dared. They struck where no one thought possible. And they would strike again. Task Force Odin had been expanded. 3 full assault wings, stealth frigates, and 2 dreadnoughts. TNS Vengeance would lead the charge. On board, Briggs met with Colonel Abrams and Lieutenant Keller in the ops room. Keller spoke first. Council intel confirms they've pulled major fleet assets back to Vireth Ka. Defense net is at maximum. Briggs nodded. Expected? Abrams leaned in. But they're stretched thin. Logistics are in chaos. Comms still crippled. Keller added, and civilian unrest is growing. Outer colonies are rebelling. Briggs looked at them both. Then this is the time. 2 days later, the task force launched. Deep hyperspace insertion, bypassing conventional lanes. Dangerous, but the only way in. TNS Vengeance led the formation through turbulent hyperfields, stealth systems pushed to their limits. Inside the command deck, Briggs remained stone-faced. No speech, no rallying words. Everyone aboard knew the truth. This wasn't a battle. It was a message. They emerged on the edge of the Vireth Ka system, within range of the outer defensive ring. Keller reported, Council sensor grid detecting us, scrambling interceptors. Briggs's eyes narrowed. Then we go loud. The first salvos lit the stars. TNS Vengeance's spinal cannon fired, a tungsten slug at near relativistic velocity. A Council fortress exploded, cracking apart like an egg under a hammer. Abrams' voice rang through comms. All ships, engage! Burn them! Terran ships surged forward, wolf packs hammering exposed flanks, stealth frigates slipping through the chaos to strike command hubs. Council forces responded with desperation. The Armada moved to intercept. Thousands of ships. But humanity had learned, don't fight the enemy's battle. Force them into yours. Inside Vireth Ka's orbit, civil unrest boiled over. News of Valis Prime's destruction had shattered confidence. Now, seeing human ships burning the sky above their capital, the Council's mask of invincibility collapsed. Riots erupted. Slave species rose up. Loyalist forces cracked down brutally, but the tide was shifting. On the bridge of TNS Vengeance, Keller called out, Main fleet engaged. Multiple Council formations collapsing. Inner ring vulnerable. Briggs's voice was steel. Push through. We get visual on the Council spire. For the first time in galactic history, non-Council eyes would see their seat of power under siege, and it would burn. Abrams led Odin ground teams in the first wave. Drop pods screamed down through withering flak. Council elite guard met them, fanatics in heavy exo-armor, but Odin fought like men possessed, blades and bullets over ceremonial pomp. Briggs touched down with the second wave, landing zone hot, half the drop pods torn apart mid-air, but his pod slammed through, hatch blasting open. Briggs emerged into a war zone, plasma fire crisscrossing ruined avenues, spires burning. He moved with his team toward the objective, Council Spire Central Command. They advanced street by street, boots crushing shattered stone. Every intersection was a kill zone. Council defenders fought hard, cornered and desperate. But so did the humans, and desperation was their natural element. Near the spire gates, Briggs paused behind cover. Keller crouched beside him, face streaked with soot, Commander, fleet reports second wave arriving. More Terran reinforcements inbound. Briggs's voice was cold. They'll hold orbit. We take the spire. A beat. No matter what. The final assault was brutal. Council war machines guarded the spire's inner halls, towering automatons with plasma lances. Briggs's team used EMP grenades and heavy rail rifles, toppling the giants with coordinated fire. Room by room, they advanced. At the spire's core, Council leadership cowered. Vectal raged at his guards. "Stop them! You are the elite! Kill them!" But his words fell on broken will. Half his guard was gone. The other half fought, knowing they had already lost. Briggs breached the command chamber at 0655 hours. Smoke, blood, scattered bodies. Vectal stood defiant, but alone. Briggs approached, rifle steady. The Council's leader hissed. "You think this means victory, human? Others will rise. Your kind will be exterminated." Briggs shot him through the knee. Vectal collapsed, howling. Briggs knelt beside him, voice cold as the void. "No more words." He stood. "No more council." Outside, the Terran flag was raised over the spire. Human forces stood victorious. Across the galaxy, news spread faster than council sensors could contain it. The capital had fallen. The council was broken. Humanity had done what no species ever dared. Aboard TNS Vengeance, Admiral Grayson's voice came through. "Commander Briggs, congratulations. The galaxy just witnessed history." Briggs' voice was tired, but firm. "It's not over." Grayson nodded grimly. "Number, but the war has changed. Now they fear us." Later, alone on the spire's shattered balcony, Briggs looked out over the burning city. Keller approached quietly. "We did it." Briggs shook his head. "We showed them what happens when humanity's polite mask comes off." A beat. "And we're not putting it back on." The stars above shone cold and silent. But for the first time in 1,000 years, they shone on a galaxy where humanity stood unbowed, where council arrogance had been shattered, and where those who once ruled in smug certainty now looked to Earth with fear.